I guess I should update my video vlogs. I don't even know if anyone's watching that, honestly. I don't know who's watching them other than, like, people who want to hurt me. It's just so funny. I found out something, which is, first of all, the foster family is actually working class. I don't know why they don't make that much money, but that's largely due to racism, and poor people are racist. I found out that actually for white people, especially in Europe, they're not inbred. It's just the poor people that's inbred. Working class, they get like poor people, but they're not inbred, and the wealthy people are normal and they're not inbred or anything like that, but they're like. But this is why there was so many civil unrest in Europe with the whole, like, there's some bullshit in Germany. And then there was, like, again, in Russia with the Marxism or something and the communist things. And I don't know, I think there was, like, a bunch of land that got, like, divided and then they put together and back divided and stuff, like the Austro-Hungarian Empire. That used to be Austria and Hungary. Austria used to be a separate thing, but I think it's considered Germany now. So this entire thing is German. It used to be German-Hungary kind of stuff. They all, like, became one empire at one point, and it broke up. And then it's like Hungary is a separate country, and then Germany is a thing, and then it's part of Austria. Austria and Germany, I think, is same or something. I don't know. I don't get updated maps here, so I don't actually know. But yeah, but there's so many poor Europeans, and they said it's because they fled to America and they kept on moving from country to country. And some countries needed people to be in their gene pool because it would lead to inbreeding for them. So, like, they married somebody outside of their ethnic background so that they can adopt them into their culture, and their kids will be part of that culture. So that's what a lot of people were doing with a lot of the poor Europeans who were, like, leaving different places and stuff like that. Yeah, they say everybody in the same class feels that way about the poor class. They hate them. And I've also found out that there are some people they use specifically for doctors to do and scientists to do research on. So, like, psychic experiments or assessments, developing new psych tests and stuff like that. Oh, this is my camp setup. I accidentally clipped Preston's nails too short, so he started bleeding, and then he acted like he was having a heart attack and having open heart surgery, like he would. But he's okay now. I bandaged him up, and he didn't like that very much. I don't know why. He was leaving blood all over the tent. And then now he's happy and sleeping. I also gave him a little bit of Advil. It should be fine because he's in a lot of pain. That stuff is really painful because there's a lot of nerve endings in the dog's nails, and that's why it starts bleeding, because they use the nails as to, like, it's kind of like how snakes assess who's walking there and stuff like that, like from their belly. Dogs kind of do the same thing with, like, who's nearby and tracking stuff through their nails. That's why there's a lot of nerve endings there, and the blood flow there is, like, people don't have direct blood flow to their nails. Like, they have a nail bed, and then that's the nail part at the top, right? So even if your nail part falls off, it looks disgusting, it's gross, but it'll grow back, and there's no blood, unless you actually damage the nail bed, which is easily damageable, right? Unlike a dog's nails, where their blood flow is directly inside the nails. Yeah, there's no tissue, there's no soft tissue in there. It's all nail, and then there's blood flow going directly in there, and it's because of the fact that the dog's nails, like, they use it, that's why it's like this kind of like claws. They use it to kind of, like, assess like the width and the thickness of all that kind of stuff, because their eyesight isn't actually very good. Well, there's nose and their ears, like, their hearing and their scent is not actually as good either, but they have the one more benefit than humans have is that dogs are able to track and hold onto the scent and distinguish which one's which quicker than humans, right? So, like, if Preston for whatever reason smelled my shoe and he's like, I know that's her shoe, and then I asked him to go follow the scent or the trail, he won't be like dissuaded by similar smelling things because he already knows what that smells like, that specific scent. It locks in his like nose and his brain, and then he just goes after the exact same thing. So that's what dogs, that's why they're really good at that kind of stuff. With paws, they have pads on their feet because the way they walk, because they have 4 legs. Humans only have 2. And their body is elongated. It's not like this. It's not slim with 4 legs. It's this with 4 legs. So it's heavy. They're holding up all their body weight, including the organs and all that kind of stuff, and their fur, which does get heavy. I don't know if anybody's actually had like a bag of dog fur. When I first had my first dog, she shed twice a year when she was fully grown, and she had 2 coats, like outside coat for weather protection, right? So when it's too much wind or water or snow, it just like falls off there and it doesn't actually get near her skin. And then there's the undercoat where it's like very fluffy and protected, so it doesn't actually it keeps her warm during the winter time. So when it's windy and there's a lot of snow and then it's winter, right, it's cold outside, it protects her skin and her circulation. So but because there's summer, because also she's from origin country, there's 4 seasons there, so that's why she sheds, because like here, right, in Canada there's also 4 seasons. It's not the same period of time, but there is 4 seasons here. Their coat actually sheds because of it, because they can't have the same thick coat in the winter. I mean in the summer, for the winter, right? In the winter they can have that thick coat. In the summer they have to lose it, like, right? Like they shed off all their fur. So I actually, like, there was a scraping brush. It was my foster mom who did most of the brushing, but I did it sometimes too, but it was like endless. I would just sit there for like 30 minutes just doing that and getting all her fur out. And I think husky owners and malamute owners also know about this too. But huskies are actually from climates where there's no summer, so it's winter all year, and so are malamutes. So I'm not really sure if they shed that much, which is why a lot of people like having them in their house, because it's not shedded. She shed so much, but that was the point, because it was a hunting dog and they're used to being outside all year round, so that's why they have that kind of fur. Yeah, they get heavy, and plus I don't know if anybody's seen sheep, like when they don't shed or shave the sheep's wool, it gets matted and it gets even more heavier because of the mats, and starts pulling on their skin. So that's also another reason. Like if you actually put it all together and put it in a bag, it's actually kind of hefty. It's like slightly less than a pound. Like I think maybe half to maybe 3/4 pound at the most. Like heavy as a hamburger, you know. But yeah, that's how heavy it is. So that's why they have pads on their feet, because like people don't walk on their hands. They're not supposed to, but if they start to use their hands a lot, they start to getting calloused, right? The calluses are for protecting your skin from further wear, so it doesn't damage the actual internal networking, like the capillaries and your like muscles and the bones. It has a harder time. There's a harder time for things to get to your bones that way. So that's that. With dogs, they don't have that kind of stuff because they're mostly covered by fur. So most of their skins, they don't detect their skin, but they can. So like he knows when I'm touching him, right? So with humans, skin is like really sensitive for everyone, right? Some people, because of their ethnic backgrounds and also their diet and also like whatever they did in their lifetime, or their drug consumption or whatever, it affects their skin sensitivity and their reactions to it. Even your food. If I eat certain foods, I break out like crazy, and it's always the cheap foods, like the junk food, which I'm foreseeing right now because I can't have any access to the better foods because I don't have any money. But yeah, I have to eat like burgers and pizza because it's cheap and it's cheap amount of calories. So I'm like dirty bulking right now. I've never done a dirty bulk. I hate dirty bulking. I don't think a lot of people like the dirty bulk, to be honest. But maybe some people don't mind it because it gives them the same results, just for a very like a fraction of the price, but like it makes me angry and I get skin breakouts, and like I'm always sleeping half the time. Honestly, like I legitimately have to rest. I have to consume a lot of coffee, and on top of that, because I'm not sleeping properly and there's a lot of people harassing me and stressed out, very angry, I'm trying to supplement that. If I went to see a psychiatrist, they might actually recommend anti-anxiety pills for me for a bit. But again, my former doctor, actually, former physician, has advised me not to take it too much because it does affect my nervous system over a period of time. So he said if you take these for a very long time, then you're not going to be able to recover from the damages from these drugs. And I'm like, so I just didn't really bother taking them that much. Because plus he was prescribing me really, really strong class of drugs, and I was like, I don't think I should be taking more than that. But he did prescribe me a bunch, and other doctors have prescribed me different types of antidepressants to kind of combat the responses that I was getting, like the responses that I was eliciting from the people that I was around. A lot of them wanted to kill me, and it was legitimate, and they have hurt me in the past, and I didn't know what to do about that kind of stuff, because it's not like I could just like cut them out and up and like leave, because I don't have that much money and all that kind of stuff, right? So I went to see a doctor for it, and the thing is, kind of like your body, like, you know, when your skin, you push it, you know, there's a response, like you can feel it, right? Like, if you cut your skin, there'll be blood, right? Like, if you pulled your hair out, you can feel that it hurts, right? It's like a little sting. But, like your emotional and your mental responses also coincide with how people treat you and their intentions behind their actions. So if somebody had bad feelings towards you for whatever reason, you'll be able to feel that empathetically. And most of the time, people do reciprocate those feelings. As in, like, I want to hurt you, I'm gonna try to threaten you, regardless of the situation, and then your response is gonna be defensive, right? And if you're continually on that defense because it triggers some sort of different neural wirings, and it does elicit these kind of responses, right? It actually ends up kind of rewiring your brain that way. Like, it kind of skews up your perception. It's like having data. If I were to graph a data point based on a table of values, and my table of values was cherry picked, right, then that would mean it would skew my graph, right? It would be incorrect. That's what that's like. Like, your responses and your representation and your understanding of other people and relationships is skewed specifically because of what is happening around you and what you are doing about it. Kind of, yeah, that's basically the gist of it. Like, if I had somebody, I don't know this person, but like this guy wakes up and tells me I'm a piece of shit every day, even though I'm not, and I don't even know him, right? This is a stranger. I live in this neighborhood, and this guy likes to walk by my building every day. Every time I wake up, and he makes eye contact with me every time I wake up to make some breakfast, and then he yells at me from outside to let me know I hate you, even though I don't know the guy. That's gonna trigger a response, right? It's gonna trigger your fight or flight response because you're in danger. That is with everyone. Preston's fight or flight response is not triggered specifically because I'm not threatening him. A lot of dog owners use their dogs without even knowing about it. They don't know that it's considered a threat specifically for dogs because dogs aren't people. And Preston thought I was like the other people who thinks dogs are people. Dogs are dogs, people are people. There are similarities, yes, but there is a huge difference between a dog and a person. And the very, very reason why people like to get a dog is for a job. A legitimate job. Like, not a career, a job. Like, I need somebody to bring this to over there and then bring it back. Like, oh, Preston, can you please, because I'm doing something right now, can you please bring my phone, right? Can you bring my phone and bring it to the house next door, and then wait there for 10 minutes, and then she'll give you the phone again, and then you have to bring it back to me. Right? That's your job every time I ask you. Okay, when I say neighbor house, you have to do that. Right? that's kind of why people get dogs. That one little job, it makes a difference. It does, but it doesn't make like as much of a difference as if you had a person or a friend, or like if that person came to your house directly for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe you don't like that person, but yeah, that's what that. So Preston, his job, and that's what his breed is for. It's for guarding and search and rescuing the things that were taken. So he has an ability to track down people who specifically have stolen things that he was guarding. He's considered an intermediate breed, so this isn't for beginner dog owners. Good beginner dogs are not golden retrievers; those are intermediate. Contrary to popular belief, they're very popular because they're they're easygoing. That's one of their core traits. If you have a golden retriever and it's not easygoing, it's not a golden retriever. It's some sort of like mongrel breed, probably puppy mill, because puppy mill breeds, despite the fact that it is actually standard breed, physically, trait-wise, it's not. That's why people are saying stay away from puppy mills. If you get a puppy mill dog, it's very obvious. The obvious thing being, it looks like that dog because physically it's qualified, but internally, like trait-wise, it's not. So that means that they actually did have some, in order to prevent inbreeding, because they didn't have access to different types of breeds available, they actually just got like other dogs, not the very best ones, just to use for breeding, so it's not going to affect their physical appearance. Right? It's kind of like having MSG added into your food. It's not very great. It's not good at all. But I've actually also noticed they do respond to good handlers. So if you are typically it goes, I've seen people who are active in like different types of dog people things. If you're really good with dogs, like you're a dog trainer, puppy mill dogs should be fine. If you are an animal trainer, again, puppy mill dogs wouldn't be a problem for people like that. They would know how to handle and train dogs, and they do respond well to dog training, as long as it's actual legitimate dog training and it's for dogs, not for people. Otherwise, other things that I am also trying to be aware of. I'm gonna just have a cigarette right now. Hey, sweetie. Okay. Oh god. Pass it. No. Come here. Oh my god. What are you doing? Yeah, sweetie, don't leave. You got bum feet, remember? Yeah. Remember? What you doing? Come back in here. Come here. Oh, jeez. Come here. Oh. Honestly, he is such a pain in the ass sometimes. I am not gonna lie. He's not the easiest dog to train. And that's the trait with dogs specifically, which is where people get really confused between people and dogs. With dogs specifically, the smarter or more clever they are, the easier that they are at learning new tricks and understanding things faster, as in higher IQ, the more dominant they become. So smarter dogs tend to be very, very dominant. As in, he doesn't like the fact that I'm the one teaching him and training him. And he doesn't like the fact that he has to respond to every little thing I'm telling him, so he's trying to fight against that. To say that he also has his own emotions and he can still think for himself. The only breed exception was the Jindo, where she didn't actually do that, and they're not. If they do that, then that's a disqualifier for the breed. But with dogs, well, Preston's breed, again, Jindo's specifically for hunting and guarding. Hunting and guarding, that's it. They're not gonna go after people who already stole, but if you're on their property, they will attack you. With other things like hunting, yeah, they are known to go out. Again, they don't actually, people who actually hunt with Jinjos, they don't tell them which animal to hunt, because they actually go after the animal which is the easiest and most available to get for the Jindo at the time. So they go and, typically deer, very small mountain deer, that kind of stuff, they go and kill that and then bring it back. Or if they can't bring it back, they will lead the owner to the animal they hunted. So that's what that was. Okay. No, Preston! No. Sit. Okay, maybe I can just do something else, like have an ashtray in here, and then yeah, maybe do that, because I don't think I can do this with Preston trying to escape every single time. Okay, so with there we go. Good thing I got this thing. Hopefully this should be fine. Okay, so that is hunting dogs. Origins of dogs. Many dog breeds, including Preston's dog breed. Actually, this is back in Russia because he's a Russian Terrier. Nobles are known to train dogs, so that's in Japan. That's true too. Most people who had dogs in Asia and in Russia were nobles. Not in Europe. Europe actually was used for poor people. So poor people like to train their dogs to do work like herding and sheep and farm work that people, I think they had people work it for them. So they would tend the lands for them in Europe. Whereas in Korea and, well, I know because in Korea the hunting dogs are actually used on people for like who live in the countryside. I actually don't know if they're rules or not. But they don't participate with the people in the city usually. Typically they stay away from that kind of stuff. Yeah, they live away in the mountains. Usually they're very, very religious people. They stay away from like human contact and human associations, but it's typically for religious purposes. Not always. There are people who live in like the countryside where there's a lot of wild animals and boars, so that's pretty much why they had dogs. Because they had wild animals and like stuff like going into their fields and they need to hunt, and they don't have like, they weren't suited for the terrain there, the people there, but dogs were, because they were smaller, better adapted to that kind of environment because they could live outside and also inside. But yeah, that was what that was. He's smoking the tent. Sorry, sweetie, I'm gonna have to open the door. I don't care what you have to say. You know what? No, Preston! No, it's not outside time. Okay. So with certain breeds like I think the Pekingese, the Maltese Shih Tzus, they're for royals, like royal women who couldn't go outside and meet other people on their own because a lot of people were criminals or very, very poor people living outside of their social circle, and there were also bad people who were trying to take their position or their wealth, acquire some very underhanded way, and just in case they can't tell because there's other people from other countries, all that kind of stuff. Not only that, but like it's for royal women who they have personal values but they may not have skills, right? So like people who have personal values such as like equality, they're very nice to everyone, they really like people and they do everything right, but they don't have a lot of skills, right? They don't have any marketable qualities about them, they don't have any work experience, and they don't know enough people to be able to support them in the case that anything happened with their family, who were the ones responsible for a lot of things that they were living in, right? So they're good people, but they're kind of like the poor people where they didn't have access to things if their family ever died or something, right? That kind of stuff. So those people, they needed a little extra help because they weren't able to, not even if they could, they can't really like, they don't have a reason to discriminate against somebody, but their dog would be able to spot that out. But they'd be able to see who's bad and who's good. They'd be able to see like, oh, this person's gonna hurt you, this person's not gonna hurt you. But they only like people with personal value, because if they have personal value, then that means regardless of time or place, they're gonna be okay because there's gonna be people who like them. Right? Even if it's not for who they are, but the values that they hold, right? So like they're like, oh, this person, I can trust this person, they're trustworthy. Right? So that's who they're for, trustworthy people. And they like to work for trustworthy people because they like being near trustworthy people, because they personally don't have to worry about what their owner's gonna do. And they're not forced to work because they're lap dogs. They're cute little animals, and they're supposed to be for royal people who are very trustworthy, very good. Also very attractive. And they like to help them out by like spotting who they shouldn't be friends with and who they should be friends with, because they can see, oh, that guy's gonna do something bad, that guy's gonna do something good, that kind of stuff. Like it's really. And also you can teach them tricks. They're typically in the toy non-sporting category in the AKC. So like Pomeranians, toy poodles, sometimes I think terriers, but terriers are usually used for restaurant owners. Yeah, the people, like, because they have storage units, barns and stuff like that. There's a lot of people out who were willing to steal from them, and they wanted to take things, and they wanted to like what else was it? There were a lot of pests there too, like they got roach infestations or ant infestations, or they have rat problems or mice problems, field mice going through their stuff, or possibly even foxes here and there, that kind of stuff. So they're supposed to kind of get rid of it for them. That's what they were bred for. So you're supposed to train them for that. That's the thing with the dog things, where you know the breed of the dog and you know what it's for, so you need to train it to do that kind of stuff. It's not gonna instinctively, you can see they'll pick up things on their own, but most of the time you're gonna have to train your dog. If you don't train it, then it's not gonna do the work that you need it to do, because this is where it gets kind of different with people, where with people can instinctively learn and do things on their own. They don't need somebody to train them, and it helps, definitely. But sooner or later they'll be able to figure it out. But those are the royal classes. Those are the very wealthy populations. Those aren't the poor classes. Poor people, you have to tell them what to do, and even then they won't do that. So it's kind of hard to get them to work, right? If you don't really know that kind of stuff, then you wouldn't be able to get them to work. Again, the trick with that is that they actually work for royals, for the monarchs and all that kind of stuff, or the wealthy people that are providing for them. So even if they don't know that's what they're doing, and like it's kind of like, oh, if they do that, like it works in that situation, so that's what they're kind of supposed to do, and they're saying it the right way, but that's not what their intentions are. And that's not why they're doing it. They're legitimately trying to get in other people's way and stuff, but it ends up working. That's why. So that's basically why they end up working for royals. They're not really supposed to work for like working class or corporate or a government. They're different things. The government actually is it used to be royals, no government, but the government was put in place due to severe discrimination practices and immigration, and also economics for the businessmen, right? Like for the tradesmen and the people who are selling and distributing things, and explorers who are going to different lands, and immigrants who still had people that they contacted back in their country, but they live in a different country now. That kind of stuff. That's kind of why they set up the government, so they have somebody to oversee every single thing there. Royals actually were more for like it doesn't really seem personal. It kind of gets personal, but not really. That is completely business related, right? Government, not personal. It's just for making sure overseeing everything is going correctly, so they can actually like do all the discrepancy work and all that kind of stuff. So they don't need to actually, well, I guess the point is they don't need to like royals don't have to work because they're very wealthy, right? There's a lot of people who don't have to work because their family pays for them, because they're still landowners but they're poor. That's why it gets a lot confusing. This is European specific, not specific, but I think specifically in Europe they still go by this instinctively. So white people, instinctively, that's kind of their social hierarchy, their social schematic. It's that. With Asians, it's a little different. I haven't lived there long enough, but a lot of people like to work for corporate. And it's the closest thing I think they think to royal things. The government is not really corporate. I mean, it should be more so corporate than that, but again, if you have somebody suited for corporate work working in the government, it's gonna cause everybody more problems, and it's gonna ruin that person's life specifically. They're not supposed to be working for government, because with government work, because there's such a higher authority over everything, what they're doing shouldn't be affecting other people to such a large extent. right? But like, if you get somebody who's very abusive or like the wrong person working for the government, such as this guy should have been working in corporate, not government, where things can be resolved through financial or material transactions. That's for corporate. For government, it's actually more so like you're actually impacting that person's development and progress. So because of that kind of stuff, they need to be able to, like, you can't make up for the fact that you had something to do with the fact that that person couldn't go to school when they're 5 years, no, in 5th grade for a month because you needed to. That person's not going to be able to make up for that. That missed period is going to impact them significantly as they grow when they're adults. And how are you going to make up for all of that? Like, you're going to go after them and work for them and make sure that they have all the things that they need because you personally have something to do with that. Now, that would be closer to what royals do. That's what royals do. That's royalty, but that's not what government workers are hired to do. So now, again, if that gets impacted in the government sector, right, that means the entire government's about to fail. That's typically how wars start and how property division kind of, people start to steal property and property acquisition a little messed up. And it impacts, this is where corporate doesn't like this kind of stuff. It impacts corporates' earnings, right? Their employees are, it affects their employees because they live there and they're friends with some of them and some of them are their neighbors. And the customer base, it could be some of them, and now they don't have any customers or their customers can't purchase the products for that period of time because, you know, they're otherwise preoccupied. So now they're they have to suffer through the loss, otherwise their company is at risk for getting shut down and everyone who works for that corporation is gonna lose their job. And some people actively depend on their job, like they have all their friends and their income and they've managed to do a significant work for the community through their job, which is unhealthy. You should separate those things, but a lot of people don't. So yeah, oh, that's what that is with the dogs. Okay, so like royalty lapdogs, yeah, they're supposed to be able to separate that kind of stuff too. Like, you can't have people do this and this and this all in one. You're supposed to separate that, right? It's kind of using honestly, it's like using 2-for-1 shampoos, you know, like conditioner, shampoo, and all in one. That shit ruins your hair. Like, it dries out your scalp and it doesn't make anything clean. I mean, I guess it smells good and it's better than not. You know what? I'd rather not even wash my hair if I had to use 2-for-1 shampoo. No thanks. But it's like that, and also like because of this modern age and like due to wars, like a lot of people have been like moved around and people have been stealing and all that kind of stuff, and it'd be hard for you to tell that kind of stuff, right? The thing is, just because you work a certain position doesn't mean that that's all that you get to do, right? Like, that's not what that person is. For Europeans who work that job, that's all they are. They're fish, right? They are their demographic, which is easy for a lot of, it's really easy for the working class to understand that in Europe, because they're like, yeah, I know what that person is because I can see that person, I know the descriptor of that person, and that's all that person's ever gonna be because I know in my country that's what that is. And then I get where it's coming from now, because it's like they're trying to make it like that too because it's so hard. It takes a lot of brain power. You have to sit down and think about things all the time, right? And you have to go through everything, review everything constantly, and you're like, I wish it was just a little more easier. The thing is, with white people, Europeans, they, like, if you met a guy who's like, yeah, this guy is 35 years old and he works as a fry cook for McDonald's, and that's his first job, and his parents are actually, one of them owns a restaurant and the other one is a helper. So like, one's a restaurant owner and runner and the other one helps out in the restaurant. So there's a husband and wife couple that works for a restaurant and their son works for a corporation but is as a fry cook, right? That right there, that is called demographics. Whatever you assume about that person is going to be correct based on that information, right? That's a law for a lot. It's called memorizing. Okay, that kind of learning about demographics and applying it, it's called memorization. So memorization or applying those demographics, right? It's like how instead of learning how to read, you know how to say things out loud word for word. So if anybody asks you, you can say them word for word. this is what that says, instead of actually learning or reading. If you read it, you're gonna have to put it in your own words, and it might be similar to somebody else's words, but people will understand that you understand this book. But that's what that is. Ugh, I think it's not healthy what they're doing. It's definitely not. It's affecting their health, and I can see it with Preston too. Something wasn't right for a bit, and I think it's because Preston. This is because of his breed and the fact that he's very, very smart for a dog. To me, he's stupid, obviously, because I'm a person, right? But like, because he's a dog, he's smart. But he likes to think that he can do everything all in one. He doesn't need any help, and if anybody helps him, then they're just making him look bad, or he's embarrassed. Like, you know, like I see it all the time on like memes and like on TV and stuff, or like, oh, like, what is it, like your mom like is like, sweetie, you forgot to bring your lunch to school, and she like brings it over to you, and the kid's like, why, you're embarrassing me, ah! Yeah, basically that's literally what he's doing, and it's pissing me off because it's like, oh my god, another headache. Why is that embarrassing? I don't personally understand. I'm like, how is that embarrassing? You should be embarrassed about yourself because you forgot your lunch, and now you have to get your mother to bring it for you, otherwise you're gonna starve. Yeah, that's embarrassing, not your mom. Like, that is so weird. Okay, so what is the difference between feudal ages and modern age? The very, very big difference is that in the feudal system times, there was monarchy. That's it. Property division decided by other working class or wealthy populations. And all the disputes were handled by them too, because they were well bred. That was a thing. Like, if there's a royal with inbreeding, that's not a royal. Like, likewise with dogs, you know, when you know, like, you got a puppy mill dog versus backyard breeder dog versus breed standardized dog. So this is where it gets kind of like the lines get blurred with the breed standard and the backyard breeder, right? So backyard breeder doesn't mean literally they're breeding out of their backyard. It means somebody who is attempting to breed dogs, but they don't know anything about the breed, and they're not very well experienced with dogs or knowledgeable about dogs. So they're not a vet. Vets know a lot about dogs. They're not biologists. Biologists also know a lot about dogs. And they're not a hobbyist who has spent their entire life studying and working with and possibly owning a few dogs of their own. And always talking to other people about dogs, right? Like, that's one of their primary interests, is dogs and dog breeding and breeds, right? Whew. Yeah, but I've been damaging with this tent like crazy. Okay. But yeah, those types of people, they would know a lot more about dogs. Those aren't called backyard breeders. Those are just called dog breeders. They're saying get it from those people. Backyard breeders typically have the breed standard, but they don't do anything with the breed. So they don't use the breed for purpose of using the dog for working or whatever the purpose they were bred for. They're using it to sell, right? So some of them, the thing is, they might be registered and they actually do take some of their dogs to dog shows. But the ones that they're selling to everyone else aren't the ones that are breed qualified or registered. Those are the ones that go to other breeders, right? Those ones they keep for the other breeders. The other ones, similar to a restaurant, actually, this is what a lot of restaurants do. They go to the actual breeders so that they can maintain a reputation, and the other breeders can qualify them, say that this is a legitimate breed. But for the actual the people who just want a dog for show, just so that people can say they have a dog or they just want one, right? They don't really know what to do with it. They give it to those. But those are called backyard breeders. They don't give legitimate breed standardized trait prized dogs to their dog people, right? So that's what that is. Why is it important to know which dog you're getting? And you're supporting people who do that kind of stuff, and you're saying that kind of stuff is okay by buying from them. And that's how you're supposed to cut them out. You're supposed to be like, hey, that's not okay. You're hurting the dog. Now there's a dog that exists and it doesn't do what it's supposed to, and it's hurting. Not only is it hurting other dogs and it doesn't know what the fuck it's doing, but you can't train them to do anything unless you're a very trained professional. And they know that there's something wrong with the dog, so they're not going to use it for breeding. But you can't even like castrate them, or you can't even spay or neuter them, because you shouldn't be doing that to dogs who there's nothing wrong with, right? Like that kind of stuff is for. I neutered my cat because I knew that somebody down the line, because they might actually steal him from me, they were gonna actually use him for breeding more cats and selling those kittens for money, and that's not okay. To force cats to breed to have money. Again, there's cat fanciers too. So that's what would have happened, because he was a specific breed. So he's a completely hybrid. So there's one part that is Turkish Angora and one part that is Aegean, which is Greek. So just two mixes, not mongrel, just two. Like a designer breed, like Golden Doodle, Golden Retriever, and Poodle. Right? So you can breed it, and then down the line you can still have purebred Turkish Angorans or Aegeans without inbreeding. So that's kind of why they have that specific thing. Also, the reason why it's called a litter is because in order to keep that breed standardized, that's what they have to do. There's a lot of waste as in litters put in there so that they can actually like continue to have the line, because dogs have more than one puppies. Okay, they have like a million puppies. No, not like a million, but dogs have. It's typical for somebody of Preston's dog size when he's fully grown to have about 6 puppies a litter. The more puppies they have, typically there are more puppies in a litter. With people only have one person. Like they only breed one thing. Sometimes it's possible to have multiples, but not always. Yeah. So people, twins, triplets, that kind of stuff, that occurs, very rare, but it happens. With dogs, that kind of stuff is, if it's just 2 dogs a litter, there's something's up. It typically means that the rest of the litter didn't make it to full, what is it called? Full development. They died in utero. So you're gonna have to get it checked up by a vet. So it could, because sometimes when it doesn't birth the puppies, it actually ends up with the actual thing that didn't birth. It rots in their uterus. That's why you gotta take it to a breeder. I mean, not a breeder. Take it to a vet, not a breeder. That's why you gotta get it from a breeder, because they will know that kind of stuff, right? They know when to take it to a vet, or they're vets themselves, or they're like vet/hobbyists. So when that happens is when you're supposed to be concerned, and you should know how much litter you're expecting from your dog, like based on their size and their diet and the type of breed. Again, if they know that they're not backyard breeders, backyard breeders go by what actually happened, right? They're like, oh, my dog's supposed to have, I'm expecting problems from my dog is a breeder, versus I didn't know, but there's a problem, but I know what to do with it. That's a backyard breeder. Versus a puppy mill where they're like, I don't care, honestly, I'm just gonna force this is the whole job of this dog, is to force out puppies. And they usually end up in pet stores where people needed to sell them, and they're like, we don't want it to end up in a home or back in somebody's fucking truck all day. So we're gonna try to find a new home for it. And how we're assessing if it's going to a new owner or not is by price point. So if you can afford, because it's kind of a psychological trick that they're doing at the same time, where they're like, if you're investing this much money into this dog, then that means that you are willing to go to see through it till the end, right? That's like, I think that's, I don't know if they teach this in business ethics, but like, typically when people invest anything, could be their time, could be their emotions, could be their money, that could be their material belongings, when they invest it, so that means consensually, free willing, they don't have to, but they're choosing to do so, and they know that, right? They choose to do that, invest it into, I don't know, let's say I'm investing into Preston. I am making sure that Preston's gonna do a majority of my energy, including my time and my things and my money, is going to Preston to make sure that he's okay. like that he's gonna be a good dog. That's what that investment is, and how they're assessing it, because they don't know who's actually purchasing the dog, right? They have no idea who it is. They don't know anything about the person. This person just walks in the store and decides to buy a dog that day. They actually don't know if it's, even if it's on a whim, if there are people to take care of it. But if you are buying it on a whim, you should have enough money to look after the dog. And I'm like, if you, and not I'm like, they're saying, the store owners are saying, oh, so if you're willing, so if somebody actually, like, if I purchase the dog and I put $1,000 into this dog already initially, I am not willing to let it go until there's some sort of return on investment, or I've done everything I can, and I can say, look, I've done everything I can. It just seems like a loss, but that's, sometimes this kind of happens, right? Kind of like when you're running a business where you do everything you can and nothing really goes wrong or whatever, and there's no actual interference. But just, your business isn't going well, so you gotta shut down, and I don't know, hopefully for the best or whatever. That's kind of stuff like that. Or if you're doing surgery or whatever, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not like, you know, who's buying it, but like, if you're willing to spend that much money on somebody and all that time and energy, like, it's harder for a lot of people, especially the poor people and the working class people. They're not willing to let go of their investments, or their not their investments per se, but like the energy and the time they put in towards that relationship, right? So they're like, I put in this much money, I want to do everything I can before I say, oh, I'm gonna cut it out and there's nothing much I can do. That's what that is. I know, it's like, it's kind of like I need some water. I just forgot. I'm like, I'm gonna have to, like, what is it? It's 1:06 now. I might have to go and buy some water sooner or later. But yeah, not buy some water. I can just walk on the street and get some water from there. No big deal. Not really water from today. I have to get it from the tap. But yeah, please, if you're planning on getting a dog, you don't have to plan for it actually. Sometimes the need arises on occasion, and guess what? There's so many resources out there that it won't take you that long to be able to pick a dog for you. The thing is, because they stopped supporting puppy mills, because it's not, that's the only dogs available to sell in the stores. That's the thing. And they're only supposed to go to professionals. That's another thing. So since it's neither going to a professional, and it's neither going to like a breeder, like an actual breeder who's using it to like prevent inbreeding in the future, right? That's why they stopped selling at the stores, because the dogs were either getting abused, or a lot of them were ending up at different animal shelters, or they were getting stolen or something like that. Like, it just wasn't good. Also, speaking of which, with the seasons here, there are 4 seasons in Canada, so they do have winter, spring, summer, and fall, or autumn. The 4 seasons isn't the same as in Korea, where, honestly, in Korea, winter is like 3 months max. And then summer is like about, I don't know. So it starts about in May, so like mid to late May to June, July, August. 4 months. And then during July and August is monsoon season, so it's heavy rain. But that's the tropical part. Tropical countries have very heavy rain. So there's a 4 season right there. There's snow in Korea. Sometimes it does hail, and there is ice. And if you go up in the mountains, it gets very cold. Extremely, but not as cold as none of it when you go all the way up north in Canada, and it's like below 40 degrees for like 2-3 months a year. So that doesn't happen in Korea, but it does get really cold. So like, it does reach negative 20 degrees Celsius in Korea, but it also goes up to like 35 degrees Celsius. But that's monsoon season, typically. Another thing is that with what else is it? I just realized something. But anyway, here winter starts around. It could start in September some years. Sometimes it starts in October. By November, it's definitely winter. So this is like -10-degree weather. And then it goes all the way through till probably about May, early June. So let's say it started in September, like late September, so it's like August, no, not August, so September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. How many months is that? There's 10 months of winter. And definitely it gets really hot during the summer, so it goes up to like 40 degrees. Sometimes there's heat warnings. So it goes all the way up to that temperature during probably June. Sometimes it gets hot in June, but usually it's very cool, like 20-degree weather. So June, July, and August, right? And then it's winter again, sort of. Sometimes during September, it's still pretty warm. It's still summertime. But during October, it's fall. So 1 month of fall in October. And spring is right before summer, so I think it's like less than a month. So about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of spring, right before summertime. So between April and June is sometime there. That's the summertime. I mean, that's the springtime. Sorry. That's when all the crops start sprouting, and they have new sprouting coming out. There's some sprouting in the trees. It's May, but they're not growing very well because it's still the winter. It's still the winter thing. It's weird. Like the weather is very weird, and I think it has something to do with climate change or something. Again, I don't think Korea is supposed to have monsoon during those times, at least. I don't know. But that's it. It's not supposed to be winter this long. This is very, very weird. Winter usually ends during mid-April or early April. Mid-April, as in like April 10th, 11th, it should be kind of chilly. It wouldn't be surprising, but not by May. Definitely not by May. Yeah, that's not okay. But that's what the weather is, and I can't change it. Oh my god! I just put holes in my tent. Oh yo. Oh, I gotta get a tent patch up. Good thing I'm gonna get a tent repair kit soon. I'm gonna have to use an ashtray. That's probably why he's like, don't do that, mommy. Don't smoke Oh, I'm not actually planning on keeping this tent that long. This is supposed to be a starter tent. And I already put like 3 holes in it. I was gonna go outside and record, but I don't think it's good for the computer to go outside and record. Yeah. Also, apparently artificial intelligence is real. I didn't know, I thought it was fake. But it's real. It's the whole artificial intelligence and aliens and stuff. It seems fake, but it was real. Yeah. Well, yeah, there was a group of people that worked at the community center, and I was like, what is your problem? It turns out they're being severely mistreated, and people were just being outright mean to them because they were poor. Apparently that happens a lot in Europe. Like, because of their finances, right? Because, like, in Europe, they don't actually go by a person's race or anything, or ethnicity. They go by their finances. The poor people, they get kind of ethnically racist or ethnicist, whatever. Like, they make fun of each other for the country that they're from. That kind of stuff. But, like, where is it? In here, I think? Like, they don't really do that, but yeah, that's what's happening with other Europeans that they were meeting, because one of them, actually a couple of them, they weren't, I think they're Romanian, and one DJ I figured out was Romanian, and I've met 2 other Romanians in my life too. But they said that, like, oh my god, I am upset about this. I really hope I can buy it. If not, I can just purchase one. They're like $20. God damn it. But yeah. The thing is, yeah, those guys were being Jewish, so they're like, you guys are fucking Jew, like, you guys are like Jews or something. So what's fucking wrong with you? This is why they didn't like them, and they were being mistreated, and they got angry about that. And they're just perpetually angry, and they're like just taking out on people that they thought they wouldn't have repercussions against. So they're like, oh, if I say angry at you, you'll understand why I'm angry, and you're not gonna do anything to me because you're not supposed to, because you know why I'm angry. It's just kind of just selfish. But I guess that's selfish in Europe. Yeah, that's like European people being selfish. It's actually a myth. Like, not really a myth. Like, it's discrimination if you assume all immigrants, especially if they're European, that they're poor. I found out that they were sending very spoiled people to Africa. From Africa to here. And the whole thing is like, so the people from Middle East were moving to the African countries, and it has something to do with Europe and what they were going through, and they were being affected by it, and they thought that the Africans had something to do with it. Apparently some of them did. But yeah, spoiled doesn't, you know, like that spoiled kid where like they do something wrong, and then they get in trouble at school, and they tell their parents, and their parents just try to make them feel better. Those are spoiled kids. Okay, they were supposed to tell them not to do that, and why it's wrong, and why they got treated that way. But the spoiled ones, they're like, oh, like, let's say a kid got caught stealing from another kid at school. If they're spoiled, then their parents are like, yeah, that's, you know what? Like, their family's not even that good. Like, don't even do that. Like, that's like, you know what? Why don't we try to make you feel better by like, we'll go get you a new toy, or like, cause you got yelled at in school. Like, it's fine. That's spoiled. But not all kids respond to spoiling. That's the thing. But they do, because that's from their parents. Yeah. Because they're from Africa, that's how they're like. Because they trust whatever the parents give them. Because they're their parents, like, they're not like that. Like, they wouldn't do anything bad to their kids. But because they don't consider it to be separate, right? Whereas in Europe, like, your parents are your parents and you are you. In Asia, it's kind of like that. But, like, you can trust your other family if your parents are like that. But your family would know. So they'll do something to kind of, like, negate their effect or make up for what they've done. That's kind of what they're doing. That's what the East Asians are like. The West Asians are like, oh, we're separate, like, and the kid knows how they're like. That's why a lot of European kids don't listen to their parents, because they're like, I know what they're like, and I know what they're saying that, and you know what, that's my mom, she's a different person than me, I'm me. That kind of stuff. That's European. Well, I don't know if it's everywhere in Europe. I don't know if it's like that in Russia, because I haven't really seen a lot of Russian kids. They work as a unit, but it seems like they're separate. Like, it seems like they're all independent and they're like Europeans, but they're actually working like a unit. Like, they're all on the same team, on the same page, that kind of stuff. That's what that is. Oh, that's what they were doing. It doesn't look like that at all. Like, it looks like sometimes you see them fighting, and sometimes, like, you don't even see them, like, talk to each other for a long time or whatever. But, like, they're always gonna be on the same page because they're from the same family. Kind of like in East Asia, but, like, they do cut people out in East Asia. If you do something really wrong, then it's like, we can't even put up with you, and they send them to the streets or whatever. And they do have a distinction. So in East Asia, there's a distinction between you and your family, even though you're from the same family. But in Africa, they aren't like that. In Europe, it's only considerable based on your wealth, because you are a proprietor to their inheritance, and also because of your genes, so like how your kids will turn out. But most of the time, it's not really like that. I don't know about that in Russia. I don't see a lot of Russians ever, like, stop communicating with either other Russians or their family. So I think that's how it's like, based on what I've seen, is that even if they're nuclear families, as in they don't talk to their families for whatever reason, they have other friends who are all Russian that they supplement with, so it's like their family. Also, they have neighbors that are also all Russian. So like, I don't think they actually cut their family out. They do see them on occasion. Like, I don't think that usually happens that much, but I just got the Albert Camus's book. He was throwing shit at the Russians. Oh god. He's French. French people are actually the only reason. There's also another thing with the language. Oh, this is gonna take forever to upload. Okay. With the French and the English, the language you can use, and you don't have to assimilate to the culture to be able to learn it. That's the beauty of the language, is that you can still speak it, and you don't have to be French, and you don't have to be British to be able to speak these languages. With Korean, you can't. This is kind of the reason for their immigration status, which is you can't have a dual citizenship, specifically because once you're in Korea and you're speaking Korean and you're living and working amongst Koreans, you have to be Korean. Otherwise, you can't learn the English. You can't learn the language. Like, you will be able to get by, obviously, but you won't be able to get a higher position that you're qualified for based on your linguistic abilities. It's not you, it's your skills that's lacking. Which a lot of people take personally, because they're like, you have nothing to do with your skill building. You're just gonna need more time to be able to build those skills, but you're not gonna be able to build it unless you are Korean. Because it's kind of hard to separate the language from the culture. Right? So culturally, the language is like that. It's like their language is their culture kind of stuff. Not really, but like it's very, very, very close. So if you want to speak Korean, you kind of have to move to Korea. So if you wanted to marry somebody who's Korean, and that's their first language, and most likely that's how you're gonna try to marry them, through the Korean courting way, right? That kind of stuff, you're gonna have to either be very fluent in Korean, which is impossible without actually living in Korea or being a Korean citizen, because of the culture. That's the thing that you're missing. If you're a second generation and you've never lived in Korea and you never worked there, and you don't have a citizenship, or you were never a citizen at any point of your life, then you're not gonna be able to speak Korean properly. That's why I get annoyed with them, because they hate it when people don't consider them to be Korean, or like speak English to them, because they're like, I'm Korean like you, why don't you speak Korean to me? And it's like, it's because you can't speak Korean. I mean, I can still try to communicate with you, but it's easier just to speak to you in Chinese. Like, that's how bad it is. A lot of people in Korea can read and write Chinese. They don't speak Chinese, right? The Mandarin and Cantonese, some of them are learning how to speak in that way, but a lot of it's just written. So visual communication. But other than that, it's kind of, yeah. But again, another reason why it seems bad, right? But it seems like they're mixing a lot of things. It's actually not. It's hard to teach somebody how their culture is and why they speak that way and what that means in that setting without actually having been there. Right? And you can't really be there and be accepted by people there unless you actually live there, or there's a reason for you to be there. Right? Otherwise, you're a complete stranger. Like, otherwise, you're just like, oh, like, I don't even know you. Like, how are you expecting me to, like, invite you into my life, my personal life, and spend all this time with you? Right? That's kind of why it's insulting. If somebody you don't even know comes up to you and be like, we're friends now, like, you have to accept me, adopt me into your family. And it's like, I didn't sign up to adopt anybody, and also I don't know you, and I don't actually, like, I have nothing to do with you. So if you did want to learn the language, you can pick up enough skills for you to go to an interview, right? And then you could live and work there, and because of your skills are unrelated to Korean, because people can speak Japanese, Chinese, English, and Korean in Korea. They have 4 different languages available, right? You don't need to be Chinese to be able to speak Chinese, but it's gonna take you forever to learn the language. Literally, there's so many characters that you gotta memorize, and if you're not constantly inside of it, right? Like, you're not looking at it constantly, because this is specifically Chinese, which is what I've noticed is that with Chinese people, if they see it often enough, they'll be able to understand it or know what it means. Like, they'll be able to connect the dots by themselves. If you leave it, like, even if they have no idea what it is, you put a Chinese person somewhere and they live there long enough, they'll know how to speak the language, or they'll understand enough to get by. But that's with Chinese people. If you're not ethnically Chinese, you should learn your ethnicity so you can kind of navigate these social rules a little more efficiently instead of getting in other people's way and possibly making enemies and having it harder for yourself. You know? Like, why would you want to piss some random stranger off? That person could have been your friend and now that person hates you. Like, why do that to yourself? But, yeah. I am so angry I burned a hole in my tent. Damn. The reason why I'm not planning on keeping this tent, it's because it's not very weather resistant. Like, I don't know if this is gonna, like, the tarp is very flimsy. Yeah, it's actually flimsier than the Child's Youth tent that I got from a different brand, which was a fraction of the price. And not only that, it's not very sturdy. Like, I can already see the seams ripping and stretching, and I'm not even doing anything to it. It's just the way that the thing is, like, by holding up the entire tent and having the space, it's stretching it out. So again, it's not that great of a tent, especially for wintertime, because I need it to be kind of like somewhat durable, like weather resistant, enough to be able to withstand some snow and wind. And this isn't really gonna hold up in the wind or snow area. So I don't even know why anybody would make this tent, but maybe it's because, like, I already have a tarp for it, so I'm not super concerned about snow or rain, or possibly even wind. But, like, again, the reason why it says it's not wind resistant is because I can see the seams, like, stretching and falling. If it's big enough or strong enough of wind, it might actually just rip the tent at the seams a bit, and it might cause it to be, like, structurally unstable. But they're not really, like, this isn't sold for, like, backpackers or hikers or in mountain climates. It's kind of for, like, a backyard camping thing. So, like, if you get, like, a registered camping site at one of the Ontario Parks locations and you're going out on a weekend getaway with your friends or family and you're, like, lighting up bonfires and, like, having a fun gay old time in the back area somewhere, or, like, maybe you just need a place to, like, be inside while you're, like, spending all day at the beach because it's very good for the sun protection, right? Like, you, so you're not in the sun all day. That's good. Another thing, because, like, so it's good for sun protection, good for, yeah, that's basically, like, mild weather, sun protection, so if it's really hot, if you're in the desert, that'll be great. Yeah, but again, the tent's not gonna hold in the desert because of the way it's shaped, like, you need the, tent pegs to go in the ground, and guess what, in the sand, there's no tent pegs to be going inside because it's so loose, right? So that's kind of why it's not really good for that kind of stuff. But, like, maybe if you're in Arizona or something, or, like, California, and you're outside and just having a nice little time at a park, and you're having a barbecue at a park, and you can, like, stay, like, rest inside a bit. Or if you're going on your camping trip in your car, but I really wouldn't recommend that kind of stuff, just because cars aren't for living in. Some people do convert it. They convert old vans and all that kind of stuff into, like, RVs and stuff. I saw it online. It looks pretty cool. But it takes a long time. Like, they take months to complete, and you can't carry so many things in it, and you're gonna have an extra car battery that you need to carry around, and parking fees, I guess, that kind of stuff. I guess it might be okay. I don't think it would be, like, I wouldn't do it personally. It's good for a road trip. Yeah, so if you're moving, or, like, if you actually sold all your things and you're, like, only thing you have is your cash and your bank account, right? And just small enough things to, like, go across the country with, right? On a cross-country road trip or something like that. Or, like, you are homeless and you're staying at motels and stuff like that. Yeah, it's great for that kind of stuff. But currently, if you don't have enough money and you don't have anything else, yeah, that's not really good for that kind of stuff. But yeah. Oh, if you are a newcomer to Canada and you're wondering what is it like to live in America, just get the gist of it, because America, in the USA, they do a lot of advertising and a lot of selling of their products overseas. So you might encounter some American-made products if you're living in a different country. There's also the whole like schematic of how do you get along with the neighbors here, who are they like, all the kinds of. You have to be okay with the fact that they're immigrants, and unlike your country where a lot of immigrants are poor, right? These immigrants aren't that poor. Most of them are very well off. Like they're financially stable because they've been here long enough, or because their family is already very wealthy and they came here with all their wealth, planning on putting their roots down here. Right, so they're saying they're not even though they're ethnically from a different country, the way to assimilate to this different culture, which is the same in every country, is to marry somebody of that culture. So planning on marrying somebody from that culture, right? And also making sure that you are having everything here, everything that you know, everything that belongs to you is here, not in a different country. That's the only way to go about moving to a different country, and you can do so for any amount of reasons. The easiest way, and technically I think the only actual way to go to Korea, is if you have a job there. Not that that's the best way to go about it, but if you don't have any job there, so if you're moving to Korea and you have no friends there, no family there, and you don't have a job offering, or you're not actually actively offered a job from Korea, so that's what I mean by job. They will offer you a position in their corporation or their company for any reason, and you can apply online. Like, they're very proficient with online things, so you can always look for jobs in Korea online. But you should be able to speak enough of conversational Korean and know how to read and write in Korean. And in the case that you can't, you can supplement with different languages. I know a lot of white people that know how to speak Japanese or can read Japanese. There's a lot of people who can speak Chinese, right? Because if you're from China, you know how to read and write traditional Chinese. You don't speak simplified. It's traditional that they read and write in. Or you can speak English, very proficient in English, but everything that has to do with their company, the corporate stuff, all their legal documents is gonna be all in Korean. There's no Chinese translation for it. Unlike in Canada, they found translators to do all that translations regardless of whatever background you come from. So they have I think currently it's 86 languages they have translations for. So don't have to be so concerned about your fluency in English, because they have translations for all of those languages available through the Canadian government. Again, you should be very proficient in English prior to even coming here. But in the case that you're not, you should be able to read the legal rules in translation, because they offer translations and translator services even if you're going to court for whatever reason. The reason why they're doing this is because it's not technically England, and they're expecting a lot of migrants to be able to support them in America. But it's not supporting the natives, so if you're coming here, keep in mind you have to be in mind of the natives. So you're planning on being an American, you have to get along with the natives or be part of their community or culture somehow, or you have to marry one of them. So if you're planning on marrying somebody, it's not like you're restricted to marrying a specific American person, but they should also be American if you're marrying and living here. But otherwise, don't come here. It's easy if you come here with a lot of money, because there's a lot of companies here that do a lot of businesses specifically so you can just pay them money and you don't have to worry about anything like that, right? Like, if you want to stay in a hotel for a week here, it's not going to be a problem. If you want to be here, just see around what it's like, again, you can afford to do so, and they're not going to restrict you based on anything. It's freely available for everyone as long as you have the money for it, right? Kind of why the British set up that way, because they need money to be able to run their government here. The British don't have that much money. If you've seen their actual royal bloodline, they're not very, like, they're wealthy, but, like, if in modern age we call that unprofessional. They're very unprofessional. But that's what the British are like. It's not Britain, it's not England that you're coming to, and even if there's a large community of everyone from different cultures here, so if you're coming from Sweden, there's gonna be a Swedish community. If you're coming from England, there's gonna be an English community. If you're coming from Korea, there's Korean community, there's Chinese community. It's really big here. There's a lot of Chinese migrants in America. If you're coming from even Russia, there's a huge Russian community. There's a Jewish population here. There's different types of people from different cultures and countries that live here. So it's not going to be such a shock to you when you come here. But keep in mind, most of them are second or third generation, so they're not really like the people from your country and lost. A lot of them have forgotten what it's like back home. So it's kind of, yeah, it's like that. But honestly, if you want to live and work here, you can actually, like, it's easier to separate it just because everything that has to do with corporation and finances is going to be done through a different country. So if you're working and you're looking for a job here, you're going to be working for people who own the company and they're actually a citizen of different company. It's a different country, not a company. So yeah, they're usually going to be like USA citizens. So again, they're not actually British. They're completely separated. I think a lot of people assume that they're part of Britain or part of England just specifically because of the fact that they speak English. Like, that's the language that they go by, but they're not English. They're not from England, and they have nothing to do with England or in the European Union, anything like that. They just speak that similar language. There's a dialect. So if you're coming to America from England, different regional dialect. If you don't want to worry about those dialectical differences, go to Canada, because every government worker is either British or speaks English fluently. And a lot of the higher class, so typically people who make more money here in Canada, also speak English fluently. So those are the people that you should be aware of. It's not like in America where you have to learn a different type of language, right? But in Canada, you can still get by with just knowing English, except you won't be able to kind of keep your roots here. You're just coming here to make money or have a job or support yourself while you're working, and then enough to save up so you can go back home and go and like live there, or like, because you for whatever reason your country can't have a job available for you. Like, let's say you're suited based on your experiences as a assistant manager at a retail location, right? But but in your country, wherever you're from, all the assistant manager positions in a retail location has been filled by somebody else. So they need somebody else to work that position. Guess what? There's positions open in America, possibly, right? More likely, because there's a lot of turnover rates here, since it's not an actual solidified place, right? It's not like they have roots here. It's kind of like this tent setup. Enough for somebody to kind of get away from the cold, place to rest. But also keep in mind, if you are coming here without any money and you're looking for government subsidies, because a lot of people have heard about this that come to Canada, because this is what Canada is known for, apart from different British colonies and specifically in England, and definitely not like the US. They don't do these kind of government subsidies in the USA. People fight for it, and yeah, they are supposed to be available to them, but you're gonna have a bitch of a time trying to get it, even though you are eligible and you should have access to them. And not only that, people are gonna give you shit for it. So just, if you're doing that, I don't know what it's like to live in America. I don't live there. I've never lived there. But if you're going to Canada, right? In Canada, there's a lot of government subsidies available if you're a citizen. And the thing with that is, if you're here for 10 years, they have to grant you the citizen certificate. And the only reason they wouldn't grant you said citizen certificate is if you have committed some sort of crime or an offense during your period of immigration or either migration period to becoming a citizen of the Canadian government. So being a citizen of a Canadian government, the only people who are exempt from this are the natives. They are not citizens of the USA government or the Canadian government. because they are the landowners here, right? They're the landlords of the governing body here. So this is why they're not very wealthy. This is why they depend on each other a lot, which is great. That's how you kind of support this kind of social interaction where people are supposed to support each other in their community, because you are a community of people who work with each other. They're their colleagues, right? Basically, these are all, you guys work in different departments, but you're colleagues. Some of you make more money than the other. That's it. That's really great. It's not like that in other countries. Some countries might be like that where the wealth isn't really a big factor to somebody's status. But here, like, honestly, there are people here who discriminate against other people for the money that they have, but they're usually, it's easy, you can dismiss them because every single one of them has stolen something. That's why they're like that in Canada and in America. And I'm pretty sure in South America too. If you find somebody who discriminates against you because of the money that you're making, unlike in Europe, right, in America, it means that they're thieves. Okay, so they have stolen something either from you or from somebody around you, and that's why they have that money, and that's why they're discriminating against other people. This kind of doesn't work that way here. So, again, if you are planning to move here, you don't have to find a job prior to moving here, but you have to find a way to make it work, or find a way to live here for 10 years so you can be granted a citizenship from the Canadian government. And if you can do that, if you can live here for 10 years, then you are naturally granted a Canadian citizenship. I don't know what it's like in America. I'm pretty sure you have to apply for an American citizenship prior to even going to America, like in the USA. So if you wanted to be a citizen of the US governing body, right, you're gonna have to apply and see how you're gonna go through that. But in Canada, you can just land here and apply for migration status that way. So if you have a visa, so if you bought a plane ticket and you're granted a 1 month stay here because you already booked your plane, your hotel, and everything here for 1 month, during that month you can go to immigration and you can apply for refugee status or a working visa or what have you. And they'll go through all of that to tell you how long it should take, and then after that you can start packing your things and moving your way here. Now again, that's just with the British government. They're only covering for you if you're a citizen here, which is something a lot of people here forget. Okay, if you are a permanent resident, if you are a refugee, if you are whatever else, you're on a visa, they're not legally liable for you unless it's stated on your visa agreement. And that visa agreement is going to be the same for you and any other person who holds the same visa status. So a refugee agreement contracts do not change if you're living under the Canadian government, right? If you're living in Canada, it doesn't change for different people. So if you and your brother and or sister, like if you and your sibling apply for refugee status, that means both of you get the same thing. You guys don't change. They're not gonna change it or vary it based on the type of person you are and how the difference between the two of you. You guys are gonna go through the same agreement, whether it's a refugee status, a Canadian citizenship, and that citizenship is same for every country. So if you're whatever citizen you are of any country, it doesn't matter. They're gonna go through the same thing as any other citizen there. That's why it's different from the monarchies, because with monarchies there are variations depending on the relationship and the type of person you are. But with the government, there is nothing like that. They're going by set standards regulated by everyone else that everyone has privy to. So everyone knows what that is, okay? Because there's documents and whatever available to you. Now, the natives don't have to do that because they didn't agree to have you there. The British are responsible for your stay there if you're going through their actual agreements. So anything to do with that, you go through the British. But anything outside of that, you actually living and putting your roots down here in your personal life, you're gonna actually have to go out of your way or actually try to find an American person or find a way to assimilate to the American culture through somebody who's also assimilated or has been adopted to the Americans. So that's how you're supposed to do it in your personal life. It's completely separate from the governing body. That's it. And they're a lot more violent here. Again, it works because I'm Korean. Koreans are very violent. And that's probably why a lot of people discriminate against them and then try to make peace or whatever. But in Korean, that's not how that works. because they know what people are like and how it gets, and also because of their religion. People are predominantly Buddhist, but that's a cultural thing. Again, has a lot to do with their language. So you don't have to be Buddhist to learn how to speak Korean. You don't have to learn. That's independent of each other. But a lot of the cultural things that they do has a lot to do with their religion, which is Buddhism. Yeah, that's what that is. So. A lot of people come to America thinking that they're gonna be eligible for government subsidies, and it's only if you're a citizen and they're treating you like a worker here, because that's kind of what you are. If you can't work here for whatever reason, they're not gonna give you any of these subsidies. You're not gonna be qualified. And another beauty about living here is that it's easy for you to get different jobs. So it's not, if you get fired, don't worry, there will be another job available, another job posting available that you can apply for. There's always new positions open for you to apply for. Now, if you worked in a higher position and you get fired, or you get let go, or you can't work at the company anymore for whatever reason, it sucks, but you may have to work at a lower level position just enough for you to be able to find a different job. But again, that's gonna be a headache, only because how are you gonna quit at the company while you're already working there? That means that they're expecting you to find somebody to replace you while you're there. So either another worker that you know there, because you're all colleagues, you're training somebody else to do your job for you while you're there, or you're either doing that, or you're actively going out and finding somebody to replace you while you're looking for a different position, or you're putting in your resignation letter. And your resignation letter doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be just my current career goals is this, and I think I've learned and experienced as much as I can from this position, and I cannot continue to work for here because it's not coinciding with my own personal goals and whatever in life. And you can put in your resignation letter that way, and that's enough for you to be enough for you to quit the company, and your employer is going to use your resignation template to tell other people why you quit. Unless this is only for resignation, it's not for anybody who gets fired or is dismissed unlawfully. That's a little different. But that's what that is. If you have a hard time understanding any of this, you're gonna have to brush up on your English. Because there is no way you can continue to work here for a long time if you don't know how to speak English. But if you wanted to just live here and you have enough money to do so, then no, you don't need to learn English. But that means that you have family back home who's willing to support you financially at least. Which is a good thing. But yeah. Another thing, if you actually lose your citizenship, because you can get your citizenship revoked. I don't know if it's like that in other countries, but in Canada, your citizenship does get revoked, as in you lose your legal status here if you do anything that goes against the British Parliament, or if you commit any sort of treason, or if your crimes are severe enough that they can no longer afford to, or even be liable. They say we cannot be liable for you any longer. That's what they're saying. So that means everybody else around you, once you lose your citizenship, you can reapply for it. It's like a break. Think of it as a break. Think of it getting a divorce, okay? Once you get a divorce, now you gotta find a new partner. During that time, it might not be easy for you because you're so used to and accustomed to your old life. How long did it take you to learn that? What was the courting period like? It took you, 1 or 2 years to get her to marry you? And then probably another 1 or 2 years to get used to living with each other. And then after that, it was kind of easier, but you got other problems coming your way. But by then you have enough friends and you're financially stable enough to be able to handle those situations, right? It's that all over again. So that's kind of what that's like. Again, the great thing about this is that this is how they're keeping the country going here in Canada. The government is that we can provide a lot of government assistance. So this is through public schools, this is through the public health system, this is through the welfare programs and the disability support programs and through pro-human rights, no discrimination laws. Like, no, they have discrimination laws, so they cannot discriminate against you unless you actually done something, as in through the criminal justice system that they've already convicted you for, right? That, or you actually have to like, or who you are as a person. So let's say an employer can hire you based on your skills and you're eligible to work that position, but they don't hire you because of other people that are working there, right? There are people that work in that workplace that have a problem, okay? They know that person, they know what that kind of problem that person has, and that's why they're not hiring you, and it's nothing personal, but you should be able to know that if you're working. I don't know what it's like in other countries, their culture might be different regarding their work ethic, but here it's like that. So if there's a person there and that person for whatever reason just does not like 18-year-old girls, they're not going to hire any 18-year-old girls or anybody similar to an 18-year-old girl, right? So like, let's say they have a worker there and that guy's really good at working. He works with, like, somebody runs a convenience store and they have a stock guy. He stocks everything and he doesn't steal from the store, and they can actually rely on him to pick up extra shifts, and he shows up on time and he doesn't go home until the store's closed, right? It's great, but he hates black people, right? And that's the only problem they have with him. They have no one else to work there because other guys that work for them has stolen something from them, or they stop showing up to work on time, or they don't show up to all their shifts but they forget about it or something like that, right? They ended up getting fired, obviously, but there's a guy who actually works there and can work. They can't fire him because he's working, but they find out later that, oh, this guy's a super huge racist. They can't work with black people because he seriously hates them. Now there's a problem with the community now because you're supporting a racist. This guy's spewing racist bullshit and hatred towards everybody who's black, right? But you're only supporting him financially because of the fact that he's the only one showing up to work on time. He's not stealing from the store, right? And now if you fired him, then you're gonna have to go to the labor board, and they're gonna be like, why are you firing this guy if he has nothing to do with your work life? It's just your personal life, right? That's what they're gonna ask, right? And then if that's the case, right, that's what's happened, and that's what they were doing, right? Then that means that at the very least, like, so the silver lining to that is that that guy at least has enough money and he's paying somebody rent, and it might not be a black guy but could be a different minority. It might be a black guy, who knows? He's paying rent, he's going to different businesses and spending his money there that are actively supporting other black people that way, right? And in the case that anything happens at work that happens because he's at work and has to do with racial discrimination, they can fire him. But that's already damages that they're gonna damage their reputation that way. But again, at the same time, they have nobody else to work that position, because people who are like that guy, right, typically it's expected that he's gonna have a problem, like the fact that he's a racist and he's like black people, right? That kind of problem exists with that kind of low level income positions in Canada. I don't know what it's like in America, USA, or down south. But in Canada, it's like that, because if he was a good guy like that and he had personal values and he doesn't steal and do it and none of that kind of stuff, right? And even if he steals like a candy bar here and there, they're just gonna take it out of his paycheck, right? Or they're gonna talk to him about that kind of stuff, whatever. At least he'll still keep the job, but then at the same time, they're losing profit that way. He's eating their profits. But at the very end, he doesn't take anything big, or like he's able to kick people out of the store, and he doesn't, like, you know what I mean, like that kind of stuff. Like, they can trust him for that, but they can't trust him for other kind of stuff. Like, that kind of people are the people that work in those positions, because those are the only people that are willing to work there for that period of time. Sometimes that guy's a lifer, right? That guy, the guy that hates black people but doesn't steal and works really good at work, that's a lifer. They're planning to keep him there for the rest of his life, and they don't have to worry about finding a new person, which is a headache, right? And then they, like, that way, like, that's kind of how it's pro-social through the other effects. But that's, I don't know, I think that's specifically American. That's not like that in other countries, but in America it's like that. Other thing that you should be aware of when you're living and working here is that everybody knows each other somehow. Like, in some way. I don't think it's like that for other countries, but in here it's like that. If you're working, if you are a worker, like, if everybody has a coworker or a colleague that knows another coworker or a colleague somehow in some way. So if you do anything stupid at work, everyone is gonna know about it. But if you do anything stupid in your personal life, only the people that you have in your personal life are gonna know about it, and they're not gonna bring it to work before, otherwise you get fired. Right? So that's kind of like that here too. But I think that's like that for any working country, like with salary positions and CEOs and corporations. So that's also a different thing. Again, if that guy wasn't racist from the earlier example, what would be happening is that he would be fired. Because people around him are gonna give him problems because they're only going there because they don't have enough money. Right? Kind of. Like, not a lot of people are gonna give problems, but like, honestly, you'll luck out with a person that's like that, but that's not a lifer. That person's a temp worker, so that person's only gonna work for a very short period of time before they find a different job to move on. Because their goals aren't coinciding with their life dream isn't oh my god, I want to work at that store, and it's definitely not something like, oh my god, like, I'm so glad I found a fucking job. It's been years, like, I've been struggling, and I'm so glad you even gave me this chance. Like, I won't let you down. That kind of thing. That's who they're trying to hire, so the person doesn't quit and find a different job. But that's the goal of every employer, is that they're trying to find somebody to work there for a long period of time. That's not gonna have problems with other people, whether it's their fault or their current employee's fault. So see, now they already know what their employees are like. They can't hire another person that they know is not gonna get along with that person. Otherwise, it's gonna cause problems. Right? And it's gonna be a headache, and they're gonna have to go through the labor board, and it's gonna be, it might even shut down the store, and there's other people working there who are depending on their salary, including your manager. Right? So that's why, like, just if anything happens, even if the intention was not to hire you for whatever other reason, if that's the case at that store and you know the people that are working there, then just don't be surprised that you don't get hired there. It is personal for them, but it's not actually personal, which is again another American thing. So that's the whole thing. Another thing is that I'm kind of like that guy at work. I'm really good at work. Like, I don't do that kind of stuff, and I don't cause problems to anybody, and I really do my best to get along with all my colleagues and coworkers, and I tried my best to kind of go by what my managers and employers are asking of me, even if it's kind of like I don't really have to do this because it's not my job, because I can, I'm not going to, but I can, right? No, I don't have to, but I can, so I will. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, if I worked at a different department and my supervisor like, can you do this for this department stuff? Like, I don't have to, but I might, or probably I will. But I do that to try to get along with everybody and cause at least some problems at work. But people like me, since I'm also not racist and I'm not discriminatory and I have a lot of life experience and like my personal life is fine, everything is fine, it means I'm not gonna stay working there for a long time. That's what that means, and that's why people aren't willing to hire me, because they want somebody like me to work there for the rest of my life. They're like, you're great, can you just have my problem so you just work for us? And you're like, thank God I have a job and you don't ever quit on us. And I'm like, why isn't it better for you to just kind of like, you know, again, they don't have say in this because they're not the ones who are in charge of people. That's the government training people so they're not racist and they're not discriminatory. That's what their job is, right? And those pools of people go work for corporate and they're like, yeah, we're gonna go do jobs in different countries and talk to different people and we affect the community now, yeah, finances. But yeah, that's their goal, that's their job, but unfortunately it doesn't always work out like that because they go to public school, right? And there's a lot of problems with the public sector, even though like, people are paying for it. It shouldn't be like that. Again, that's called stealing. But yeah, so if you're coming to Canada, just expect these problems. It's easier if you're European because you're already expecting problems with poor people, right? But the problem now is that you have people who are potentially better than you or just as good as you that are from a different country that can also speak this different languages. That are also have people who are like that here, and that's when a lot of people get racist. A lot of the working class, they find out they're not actually working class because now they became working class in Europe due to the availability, and then they start getting racist, and they start getting very hateful and discriminatory. And again, it's kind of, I'm not saying they're racist because of those reasons. A lot of the reasons why they just ended up, their family ended up living in Europe for that amount of time was because of the fact that they're kind of racist. Like, they get like that when they meet somebody of a different race who's just like them but they're from a different country. I personally would be happy, and so would be a lot of wealthy people and working class people, but with the with the lower class, not like that. Like the poor people, they're not like that. So like it gets like that here too. So there's another problem. But fortunately, a lot of people who don't have a lot of money that work or depend on the government, so like government subsidies, government housing, that kind of stuff, they're not actually racist. Most of them are working class. Some of them are very poor, but it's because their family has been in for a while and they're running out of money. And those ones are the racist ones. So again, it's easier in America to spot out the problem people because those are the ones that people have problems with, and those are the problem people, and those are people who don't make that much money. But again, that's kind of how they're contributing to the global society as a whole, and also as a whole. And it's hard to live in this modern age without coming across to different people from different backgrounds, and I think that's why they invented the internet. Because they're like, you need to be able to see somebody from a different culture and different background and different ethnicity without being racist. It's kind of like a lot of people might be xenophobic. They're scared of strangers and foreigners. They don't know who this person is, so different, right? Just physically speaking, yeah, they're different. So that's where they're trying to reduce that kind of xenophobia, okay? So you can kind of see what they're like from a distance, just because it's a screen. You don't like seeing that person, you just close your window and it's over. You don't have to see people like that or that person again in your computer if you choose to, right? But in reality, in real life, in the real world, not the virtual online world, it's not like that. You're gonna eventually come across somebody from a different country, different culture, different skin color, different ethnicity, different religion that you may not be exposed to before when you're younger. And you're just like, oh my goodness, me! Yeah. But again, if you're xenophobic, it's kind of triggering your flight or fight response. You gotta see a doctor for that. Go see a psychiatrist, they'll do something, and they'll be like, okay, now you don't have to have that problem anymore. Immediately, because then if you keep doing that, you're gonna end up in prison, and it's really not your fault because it's a mental disorder, but I'm gonna go to prison too if you do something and I'm actually your doctor. That is, please be careful when you come to America. Expect everyone here to be from different backgrounds, and no, they're not all poor like in Europe. And also, you will be surprised at the wealth stuff divisional, and you can't even judge them by their physical appearance. Like, you don't know what people had to do to maintain that position or fill a position that they could do, but it's kind of stretching them out. Like that example that I was saying, how like my employer, like the district supervisor, he's asking me to do something for a different department that I don't need to do, but he's like, can you kind of pick up the slack, otherwise this company's gonna be kind of in trouble. You need to kind of like go review this guy's work a bit before we send it out. And I'm like, that's not even my job, I'm not even paying me, but fine. But yeah, that's what that is. So like, you kind of like that, like I would get stressed out over time if this continues to happen, and I'm gonna have to bring it up with HR or my supervisor directly, but he's gonna tell me to go to HR, and then I'm gonna be like, HR, I keep getting reports that I have to do for a different department, you're gonna have to find somebody else. Like, these guys aren't working properly, and they might actually do something, like go over their work and see who's not working and fire that guy and find a different guy. But during that process, it's gonna be a headache, and not to mention, it's gonna be a long time before they may even find somebody. So it's not gonna be within a month period. It's gonna be for the next 6 months. I might have to pick up the slack so they can find somebody else to work there. So that's probably why the supervisor is asking me to do that. You know, but then why do I have to do that? Shouldn't you be hiring a consultant to do that work, the supplemental work? Guess what? They cost a lot of money, don't they? Yeah, the consultants, they're on contract and they don't actually stay at that company for a very long time and they cost a lot of money. But some people prefer consultants, so they don't have anybody associated with the company who are doing that. Because everyone else in that department, including my own department, is going to find out that's what I was doing for the district supervisor. They're going to get scared and they're going to start like trying to get me out because they're going to start calling me a rat or something. Right? Even though that's not what I was doing. So like it might cause problems for a brief period of time. Plus, when they have a new person, everyone has to get used to that new person again, and then might subside, and hopefully there's no more other problems until the problems that it was causing from that new hire, like that person just had like serious mental disorder or something, or like seriously hateful, like it just built up inside them and decides to do something about it at work. Yeah, and then that's another thing, but it won't be me, it will be a different person, different department doing that. So that's kind of like why it's a headache to work in an office. But honestly, the salary's good, it's air conditioned, and everyone there is very similar to each other. Not to mention, everyone has the same work ethic. So their goals are similar, which is great.